Shane Monaghan from Lemur. Welcome to Irish Startup TV.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Lemur.
Lemur. Right. Lemur is the next evolution of social media into voice, and simultaneously it's the next evolution of podcasting into social media. So essentially, Lemur removes the barriers to entry for anyone who wants to create audio or podcasts instantly, and tying into the evolution of what it is. It basically, great design comes from solving problems, and I'll bring it right back to how I came up with for the initial idea for Lemur. Was way back in December 2014. I don't know if you or many of your listeners or viewers would know, in a past life I was a professional rugby player.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, so I played...
With what?
Rugby union. I played, I was in Leinster, Connacht. I was played in Rotherham for a year, and then I was in Gloucester Rugby in the Premiership in England for 3 years, and then I finished up with Munster in 2015. Amazing. So I came up with the idea while I was still playing for Gloucester. December 2014. I flew home to Mornington, a place you know very well.
Great spot, absolutely, love it.
The Jewel of the East. And I was having a conversation with my dad, and my dad is actually, Mornington's just outside my local town of Drogheda. He's in a community group, which is the Drogheda City Status campaign group. And they do all this voluntary work. But my dad was getting very frustrated because no one knew what they were doing. And he wanted to get the word out there, get the message out there. And he would write letters to the newspaper. 9 times out of 10, they don't get published. When they do, they're gone after 24 hours. And that's why traditional media is dying in the war against digital, Yeah. And he said, Shane, is there anything we can do to get our message across? I said, there is, Dad. You can make a podcast. And he goes, brilliant. What's a podcast? So I explained to him what it was, and instantly, layman's terms for my dad, it's a homemade radio show,
Brilliant.
And he said, Shane, that sounds brilliant. How do I do it? So I said, well, Dad, if you want to do it right, you need to get headphones, microphone, recording device, a laptop or a desktop, editing software, a web host, set up your social media account. They're like, whoa. Shane, too much information. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So we went from amazing idea to not interested in seconds, literally seconds. And that's when I got the initial seed for the idea for Lemur. Would be, Jesus, wouldn't it be brilliant if there was an app for someone like my dad or anyone who wanted to instantly create audio or podcast, open it up, say what you want to say, hit share, and you're done. So it removes those barriers to entry encountered by my dad. And the term less is more came to mind. And that's where the name Lemur comes from. It's an acronym, LIMOR, less is more,
That's brilliant.
So there you go. And it's a playing words of the lemur animal.
I love it.
And who doesn't like lemurs,
Absolutely.
So, and that actually ties into the point you made just before we even started this in regards to videography and film. It's great having all the equipment and all that, but less is more. If you can do it with less effort, you still get the same result. And that's why podcasts are so effective and why they're growing. Even versus video, like the amount of people using Lemur now I'm talking to, they started doing video, but they're leaning more towards podcasting because it's less effort. And you still get the same result a lot of the time,
Well, the scale is a huge issue as well. That's exactly what we were talking about just before. That from my perspective, if I'm to come and meet you somewhere, I have to firstly make sure that you're available. I then have to potentially travel. I have to bring a load of cameras. And all of that takes time. And at the end of the day, there is a bit of a question about whether or not the image quality is so important. Audio, though, you absolutely can't have bad audio. People will argue that you can forgive a bad video, but you can't forgive a bad audio. But most importantly, it's about the story. But I'm still trying to figure out which is more important, audio or the story. But I think they're probably pretty much level pegging. And that's why I think your product is particularly exciting, because you don't have to worry about video at all. And there's also the scalable element that people can be anywhere in the world. Right now, you're just up in Mornington, you're only 45 minutes away. But at the same time, you could be in Vietnam or you could be in Australia. So this technology is really very exciting.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And it's amazing. Like on Lemur, we're very new. We're only officially launched. The idea was conceived, as I said, back in 2014, but we've only officially launched since September when we went live in the app on the Android version of the app. But most of our users are actually like American,
Wow. Okay.
So I'm communicating and building relationships with people in the States who I've never personally met.
It's
But
amazing.
and voice is so powerful. It's amazing because what you get via voice, you actually build up a personal relationship very quickly. Like you may only even have one voice comment reply with someone, but there's an instant connection because it's real as opposed to text or an image where there's a disconnect. There's no person there. Where voice is just, it's completely different, and that's what Lemur is as well. That's very important aspect of it, because people, when they initially hear about Lemur, it's a podcast app, and I go, no, it's not a podcast app. It's a social audio app. And what social audio is so, as I going back to the thing about solving problems. So first of all, problem was barrier to entry to create content was my dad. So we've solved that issue now straight away. With Lemur. Another big issue, which we can go into in a second, is about the with the podcast industry and voice and audio in general, is metrics is a huge issue, especially when you get into monetization and marketing, that side of stuff, which is we're definitely ahead of the game in terms of centralizing, giving really, really detailed insights back to content creators. But I think the most powerful thing about Lemur is the third issue we solve for podcasters is an issue they don't even realize they have yet, which is interaction, social engagement.
That's a very good point. You can't leave a comment if you're listening to a podcast, can you?
No, you can't. And how do you
sorry,
engage?
You couldn't
You
historically.
couldn't. Yes,
okay.
Historically you can
okay.
now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if you did want to connect with the podcaster, then how do you connect with them? You can, but it's long-winded and takes a lot of time, and that's one thing people do not have.
Yeah, so there's friction there.
Yeah, friction. Find an email, find a Twitter account, and even at that, there's still no guarantee. But with Lemur, it's instant. Like you go onto my page, you listen to my cast, and you can instantly not just text, speak to me. So it's the quickest. Say in time we'll have, let's say, Dwayne the Rock Johnson on Lemur down the line. He can put up a cast. You can speak to him, and he can, instantly speak back to you, and it'll be the closest thing you'll ever have to having his phone number.
Amazing. Yeah.
And that's what's really exciting about it. The engagement side of Lemur, that social audio interaction is huge. And then it ties into, again, what I'm doing with Lemur is I'm not building it for now. I'm not even building it for the podcast industry. As I said, it's a whole new industry and genre in itself. I'm building Lemur for where the industry is going, where technology is going in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time. The whole time I'm spreading this message as early on as 2014, when I really started diving headfirst into the audio, voice, and podcast industry, and I saw, geez, this is going somewhere. Is the evolution of voice and audio. We right now are in the era of audio. People just don't realize it yet. Everything is voice technology. That's where everything is going. Voice activation, voice AI, etc., etc.
Hello, people Alexa. Are the lights on?
Yeah, there you go. Okay. And that's baby steps. But where things are going is a different animal.
And that's why do you think that is? Is it to do with the way people are consuming, or is it to do with the way the technology is developing, but we just haven't found maybe ideal uses for it? Or is it back to your point about the podcasts, that podcasts are becoming very popular because they're uber accessible at scale?
It's there's no one answer to that. It's kind of like in the fitness industry, how do I get a six pack? Is there one pill I can take? The answer is the same. It's multifaceted. One is technology without a doubt, where when podcasts first started, early noughties, that you had your desktop, whatever. My phone is more powerful than the desktop was.
It's ridiculous.
And the social media as well, the effects of social media. It's a great parallel to see, because when podcasts came out, they really hit the scene before social media exploded. People are like, podcast, next big thing, going to take over. And that didn't happen. There's loads of different reasons why, but one was social media arrived. And everything has all been focused on social media and video. is a big thing.
Do you think it's become overdone? Because for someone who came into the video actually around 2014 as well, there's been a lot of videos come out in the last couple of years. And I think it's almost become too much. And I certainly see platforms like LinkedIn as an example, a great business tool, but they're becoming flooded with people taking other people's videos, reposting them as their own videos. And it's like this thing, I need to be in video, but it's people are missing the point. Video is it's like Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
So if you're putting a video out there needs to be a really tangible reason.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for the rise in podcasting in particular. The thing I'm focused on is, there's an exhaustion. People are exhausted with video, peak screen. They're just getting hammered with it. And a lot of the negative effects of social media are coming to the fore now as well. The anxiety it causes, especially in the younger generation. We're very lucky, I think. I don't know what age you are, Richard. What age are you?
Probably about your age.
Oh, what's that?
I'm unfortunately I'm old enough to know what it was like when you had to stand in the freezing cold hall if you wanted to contact somebody.
Okay, I'll just say that we're the last generation of old Ireland, as it were, before the internet even.
Yeah, it's really everything has changed and arguably for the worse, and almost arguably. If we'd had this conversation 6 months ago, people would be watching going, here's a fella trying to build a platform. Good luck with that. But because of what the incumbent social media companies, it turns out they've been up to, actually, what I'm hearing constantly from people at the moment is what's going to be the next big thing that I can go to, that I can communicate with people and that I can be safe. And it's a huge issue for brands, especially.
Yeah, and that ties into, again, why the opportunity of what Lemur offers and the rise of podcasting is, here's a quick question for you, right? As I've asked you, in marketing, what's one of the most important things in marketing to be a successful marketer?
Product fit.
Trust.
Yeah, trust. That's one. Yeah, it's so important. I didn't think of it. It's the underlying
it's one of the hardest things. One of the hardest things to get. Once you lose it, it's gone. And this ties into the social media giants, but also traditional media. Our good friend Donald Trump always says? Fake news.
Yeah.
People do not trust mainstream media anymore, and that's not just because of the rhetoric from the president or whatever, but it's from people are more educated in how things work now because of social media and the internet, etc. So they've lost the trust of the people. So people are looking for alternative forms of media. Where do they go? They go social media, the internet, and find podcasts. And the main difference between podcasts, let's say, and your traditional Fox News, BBC, Channel 4, RT, whatever the case may be, is those are corporate entities. And there's no way me or you as an individual can relate to a corporate entity. But if you're listening to a podcast and listen to, say, Joe Rogan, who is an individual, you can relate to him as a person. And you can go, geez, I like this guy. You like this guy, you listen to him more regularly, you build up a relationship with him. You build up a relationship with someone, you become a friend with that person, and what you do with friends, you trust them.
Yeah.
So that ties into then the marketing side of it. If Joe turns around and buy these brain pills, on it.com or whatever it is. So Joe wouldn't lie to me. I listen to his stuff. I like him as a person. Geez, I'm going to try out those brain pills.
But actually, just to jump in there, that issue of trust, it's a very good point that in some instances, people, I don't want to call them influencers, but for want of a better way of expressing it, there is an issue that the whole influencer market thing has come along because people have been building trust for the reasons you set out. But in some instances, that trust has been broken. So there are really two aspects to this trust issue. One is that how can I trust the person? You don't really know. I've thought about this a lot over the years. You don't really know until you trust them. There's a leap of faith there. But then the other side of it is the platform. And that's what's quite interesting with specifically with what you're doing. So maybe if you could talk us a little bit through the platform, the technology from the front end, what the consumer will interact with.
Okay, yeah. again, where we're at with Lemur. So essentially what I'm doing with Lemur is I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm evolving. I'm taking the best aspects of existing social media that people are used to, that they like, they enjoy, and applying it to voice. So essentially you go on to Lemur, and this is the other thing, the social aspect of it with podcasting. Podcasting at the moment is you've content creator and consumer, that's it, and there's no engagement, there's no interaction. I want to bring the interaction to that. So you sign up to Lemur, you download Lemur for free, now available on the App Store or Google Play for
link below.
Listening. Yeah, there you go. You can instantly set up a profile similar to the way you do on Twitter or Instagram. You create a following. So people follow you, you can follow them back instantly. And this brings it back down to the personal level. You're not a show. Do you get me? You can Absolutely. Be a show if you wish, but essentially you're an individual. And that brings the social aspect and makes it easier to engage. And that psychology that goes behind that as well. So you set up your profile, your bio, your image, etc., etc. And then essentially you can follow other people. You can be a lurker, as they say. You can set up your profile and just listen to people if that's your choice. But if you want to create, you can create instantly. Just hit the record button, say what you want to say. It can be 10 seconds, it can be an hour, depending on what you want to share. You can edit then as well, something I'm very proud of, and we're only starting in terms of the evolution of the product, but the editing essentially is, again, I look at what people are used to, what they enjoy, and one is, from my perspective as well, is when you're texting, one of the great things on texting on Apple or whatever is the copy paste delete.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that now in my edit, but for audio.
Awesome.
So you go in and you can literally copy paste delete. So it just removes those barriers to entry in terms of people get intimidated by production and editing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was previously involved in a product that democratized app design. And the logic behind that product was that if you arrived at a lot of the incumbent technologies, you'd arrive at a screen with like a million different buttons, and it was just completely overwhelming. So you're figuring out what are the sort of the minimum editing features that people need, and you're making it nice and easy for them. And you're building on that logic that if already you can copy paste delete with text, why not do it with audio? I think that's really brilliant, actually. Very clever.
Yeah, so that's exactly it. And the main thing with the editing as well, which ties into the philosophy or ethos of podcasting, is it's a have it and not need it situation.
Yeah, okay.
Like, again, I come back to Joe Rogan. I'm a big fan of his, but he's like the godfather of, if you want to do a podcast right, he's your man. Like, he comes in, sits in the studio, hits record, talks for an hour, hits stop and shares. There's no editing.
Right, okay.
And that's why people love podcasts, is because they're not edited. They're not interviews. They're conversations.
Yeah, well, that's something that I certainly, that's always been my approach. And most of the time it's never been an issue. But every now and again, someone writes me and they say, oh, do I need to prepare anything? I'm like, no, literally, like, if you're meeting in a bar or you're meeting over a coffee, you wouldn't be preparing in advance. That's, you don't prepare in life. You just have to have the chats. So
exactly.
Yeah, the authenticity then is the huge element that builds back to the trust element.
They're interconnected. That's exactly it. And over and over and over again, there's a lot of people I'm meeting with talking about what they love is, as you said, authenticity or real. It's exactly. Real. It's not fake news, And so that's what the editing, as I said, it's there in case, say, you're in the middle of a conversation and a dog starts barking in the middle of it.
Or your drone arrives at DHL.
A drone, right? Exactly, yeah. Sorry, can we edit that, please? So that's what that's there for.
Yeah.
But and then you go into your publish section. Again, what people are used to, say, like in Instagram, you put in your title, you put in your description, but you can tag other users. You can put in hashtags then as well, which helps with the search. Search is a massive issue for podcasting as it is, because you hear a podcast you love to do with true crime or something like that. How do you find related podcasts? It takes time and effort because it's terrible. It's not set up that way, you see.
You're off platform then as well. You got to go and look in a few different places.
Exactly. It's like going, I'm just coming into my head, old school, going into a video store, and
analog, nice.
trying to find a video quickly is not easy. Whereas the likes of an Instagram or Twitter, you go into the search, or YouTube, you go down that rabbit hole of YouTube, and you can be there for hours, suggested video, similar video. Oh, this is brilliant. That's what I'm bringing to the table. Essentially, where Lemur is going is where we are now. So where YouTube was 10 years ago for video, we are right now for voice.
Savage.
And what Netflix did for video, we will do for voice. So it gives you an insight of where we're going. And
so coming from the professional athleticism space, I get a really strong sense that maybe you're bringing some of that attitude into the business. I was speaking to a girl about this in the context of art the other day, and we're kind of saying, look, whether it's art or business or sport, you have to have a certain attitude. And if that attitude is there, you can be successful across multiple verticals. Is that a fair assessment? Would you say that whatever winning mentality that you would have required as a professional athlete, that you're bringing that same mentality into this technology business?
100%. Yeah. More and more, it's gas, like professional sport, professional rugby in particular, it's a meat market. It is a tough, it's as high performance an industry as you can possibly be in. And I was very lucky because I got to play a very high standard. Again, I didn't achieve everything I wanted to achieve in it. There's different reasons. We can have another conversation over a pint about that. I could write a book about that, or a series of podcasts over it. But I was very privileged and lucky to work with some of the most powerful personalities you could ever encounter anywhere in the world, in high performance, positive thinking, hard work ethic. That's a huge thing. Like you learn what hard work is, and there's no guarantees. Like you burst your ass, you could be training harder than the guy next to you, but it doesn't mean you're going to play the weekend, and then you learn about the old peaks and troughs thing. There's more troughs than there are peaks, but when you get to
managing your mental health, managing energy levels, I think talk about mental health has almost become a bit ridiculous these days, but from a practical point of view, like peak performance and maintaining peak performance and peaking at the right time, and then everyone else peaking at the same time, it's a real minefield. So if you can be there at all, if you can survive at all, it definitely sets you up for best success in other verticals.
Yeah, big time. Like the sports thing, it is, as I said. There's one guy, I don't know if you heard of a guy called Brian Rose.
Context?
London Real, big podcaster in the UK.
Okay. London Real, that rings a bell, but to be honest, I don't know much.
Well, he's actually one of the first guys. I think he's probably one of the first podcasters I ever listened to. You see, my brother suggested him to me back in the day, and really, he's some brilliant stuff. He does, and he's built a massive industry, and he's done very well off the back of it. But I met him when I first started Lemur. I reached out to him and spoke to him, and he goes to me, he's an American guy in London. He says, this entrepreneurial thing this is one of the hardest things you've ever done, right? And I'm kind of like, no. And he was shocked. He's like, what are you talking about? Everyone says yes, I was like, no, I'm coming off the back. If you have any idea of some of the stuff that you go through as a professional athlete, and like even in my own personal experience, I almost died. You know what I mean? Like I life or death situations. I got heat stroke, and we were training with the SAS in pre-season, and I was literally 10 minutes away from dead.
My God.
And that helps put things in perspective for you as well. And
absolutely,
that's why you often see in the business world, entrepreneurial world, whatever the case may be, some of the top people are ex-military people. I'm not putting myself in the same in the same context, but what I am is you get a perspective on life or death situations. It's not a life or death situation. So
it's a very good way of looking at it, but it's a funny thing. This is a slight tangent, the concept of failure, that like I have mixed feelings about it. I think that if you try very hard, and at the end of the day, if you put 110% in and the market goes against you, that's one thing. But if you fail because you kind of said, sure, I'll do this will be a bit of a laugh, I'm not so happy about that. And being able to understand that is very important, and to be able to take that concept from sport, because there is an issue with sport. You won't be let out of any club, doesn't matter what the vertical is, without training to failure on certain occasions. And the reality of it is sometimes you do have to put your body on the line in business as well, and go all in, and there is huge risk. But if you're not reckless and if you're not careless, that's a very good thing to have that attitude.
Yeah, definitely, and it's, I won't say it's easier. It's not, because it's different type of pressure. There's different stresses in business and stuff like that as well. But no, I learned a hell of a lot. I think the big thing, one of the biggest assets I learned from it is, rugby is one of the best team sports in the world. So I know the importance of team and teamwork. And from day one, I was very lucky. Some of my business advisors, some brilliant people, that's what they said as well. And, I was a winger. So if I didn't have a good 10 or a good 9 or good centres, I wasn't scoring any tries.
Yeah.
So it's the same as like when I set up Lemur. Okay, I have this division, this is my plan, but, I've no clue about legal or, the economic side of it, or business structure or tech. So I surrounded myself with some, you hear this over and over again, this is nothing new, but I surrounded myself with some brilliant people.
What were the first steps?
Well, when I came up, like, in terms of my background, I don't have a tech, I'm not a coder. I do have a degree in product design, which I got at a DIT while I was in Leinster Academy. And so I have an understanding of the process, life cycle of a product,
Perfect.
And again, it's a great degree, but it's just a starting point. And then you do your research. But it comes down to, you touched on it yourself already, in terms of interest people have, or, effort and that. In whatever you do, you must have a passion for it. You must really want to do it, or you won't do it to the best of your ability.
Also trying to get up every day to do something, that's called a job normally. So
yeah, exactly.
You don't want to be building yourself into that position.
Yeah, like, you love what you're doing. Like, you jumped out of the bed this morning because you knew you were going to be having a conversation.
Absolutely, and especially because of what you're doing as well. It's particularly interesting for me because obviously it's particularly relevant to my vertical, and I'm always kind of wondering, like, even with the video thing, I started doing video, but I'm wondering, is it so relevant? And, you've challenged me to think about that this morning as well. Do we even need video? It's all about the story. It's all about the quality of the audio. That's really the most important thing, as we've touched on already. But back to you, and how did you go about building this product from scratch?
So, as I said, when I came up with the idea originally, I was still a full-time professional rugby player. It was a crossroads in my life, really, when it came up, because, things happen for a reason. Faith, I believe in that a lot. But it was a very, very difficult year for me professionally and personally at the time. And this was a nice distraction from what was going on. And the more I looked into it, the more I saw an opportunity here. Okay. If I had done this in 2014, it would have been way too early. See, this is the thing. Timing is so important.
Absolutely.
So we have nailed the timing for this thing, But anyway, I did that initial stuff, and time went on. And long story short, I finished up with Munster during the last World Cup. I was a short-term contract with Munster Rugby, so I finished up November 2015. So a year later, let's say, of my initial development. And I was looking for a club at the time. I was out of contract, had an agent looking for me, but I had you talk about passion. I had lost the passion for professional rugby. Once you lose that, as you said, in that industry, you're done, and I didn't realize it at the time. I do now, looking, I had lost it probably a bit sooner than then. But so anyway, what I did was funny. I took a bit of a turn. I went from professional rugby player into MMA fighter for 6 months, and I did a thing called Wimp to Warrior in Dublin, which is you train for 6 months and have a cage fight at the end. It's actually a brilliant thing. I was under
Coach SPG?
SPG and Coach Kavanagh, yeah. So I was training under one of the best coaches in the world, and experienced the sport I always wanted to try. I first did jiu-jitsu classes probably around 2010, but I could never do anything with it because I was a professional rugby player and you're contracted. I didn't want to risk getting injured, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I did that for 6 months, and that was a great period of time for me to evaluate where I was going, keep fit, etc., and try something new. But when I finished with Munster, I was kind of right. I had this great idea for Lemur. I need to do this now, do something with it, or someone else is going to do it. So that's when I pulled the trigger. And first, on what you're asking me, the question of how do I go about it. So my dad was a businessman for years. We ran a family-run business in Drogheda, Monaghan's sports store, etc. So that's kind of where I learned my initial sales. I was on the floor selling clothes when I was like
amazing
6 or 7, So I learned a hell of a lot from Dad, and he's had, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, some of the stuff he has done. You talked about dare to fail. Taking that risk and doing stuff like he was flying in the late 80s, early 90s out to Malaysia, had a whole tracksuit brand and stuff. Mad story. He had his own brand. At one stage, he was in over 800 outlets in London or in England. Wow. And then the recession hit. But anyway, so I went to Dad, and he knew about Liam and stuff. So he put me in touch with a friend of his who's become a very good friend of mine now, who's essentially my first business mentor, a very successful businessman in his own right in many different areas. And first thing he said to me, he said, before you do a thing, he said, you need a shotgun man. You need a guy who will tell you the truth no matter what, will watch your back, and you can trust 100% and advise you, and who can, from a business perspective, because I didn't have much business experience in dealing with people or, advising and all that. And he introduced me to this guy, and I met him, and and he said, obviously you need money. So I need an investment. I had an idea in my head, and you're kind of like, right, I need some money. And in tech, you're kind of like, lick your finger and stick it up in the air how much you need. I knew I needed a lot of money, but met this guy, and I initially was going to John, is his name. I was initially going to John just, seeing if he'd give me some advice and stuff like that. And off the back of the initial first meeting we had, which was December 2015, he said, well, how much are you looking for? And he said, well, I'm looking for this or I'm looking for that. And she's right, I'll come in. And he says it every time now. He said, Shane, to be honest with you, I didn't have a clue what the product was. I kind of had an understanding what the product was, but I liked you. Your passion, your attitude, where you're coming from, and this vision you had, and I wanted to be a part of it. I said, it's worth a punt. And then John, through his connections, put me in touch with 2 or 3 other guys who came on board very quickly as well. And there you have it. We had very quickly a group of guys with some serious business experience who put their balls on the table, as they put money on the table, and we had a bit of cash then to actually start pushing towards a prototype, which you needed in order to get bigger money. Because at the end of the day, in tech especially, it's just, I was only discussing with a friend of mine the other day. I think one of the worst insults you can give to people is he's a great ideas man.
Yeah.
There's how many people you walk into you meet, oh sure, I had the idea for Facebook 20 years ago. I was like, all right, good lad. Yeah, it's always an idea until you make it happen, and
execution is mission critical.
Exactly, and you need cash to do that. It's all blue sky until you have money. So we had money. We had the beginnings of some great people involved, and then it's a snowball effect then. And from my background in rugby as well, the great thing from playing in so many different clubs and playing in the UK in particular was my network grew. And I was exposed to some brilliant people who then have a brilliant network. And that's what business is. People often ask, what's network? It's being able to have a conversation first and foremost, be able to talk to people and having a good network. And then, because you can, I won't.
Well, you already have the trust as well. Like, you mentioned trust earlier, and if you have that network, it's based upon people know you've an ability to turn up and get shit done. Because it's all well and good knowing people, but if you know people and you all know you can rely on each other to achieve very difficult tasks in very stressful situations, that brings network to a whole other level.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the big thing about the network is, network opens the door for you. The old sayings and cliches are so true. All it does is open a door. You have to walk through. If you don't have the ability, the capability, the idea, or whatever, and it comes down to that reputation thing, you only have one reputation, and but going back to Chris, first mentor, he said you only need one success, one thing to make it work well in your group, and then you'll have never have a problem again having another, because getting the
So
one
what was your first success? What was it like building a prototype, and how did you go about that?
Well, that ties into the first success. I think was getting John over the line first
Absolutely,
and foremost,
yeah.
which was definitely, and within 2 weeks we had the money we needed, to build the prototype, because it was get the prototype, and and this is like anything, is you have your ultimate vision and ultimate goal, but you need those step by steps to get to that goal. And the first one was, right, get the cash to build the prototype, as you said, and it worked out really well because we had the cash, then we needed to research developers, because I'm not, as you said, I'm not a techie. I don't code myself. We need to find developers. We did a lot of research in Ireland and the UK, and we ended up working with a company in Ireland who've done really well for us, which was very handy for me, because I didn't have to hop on a plane all the time if something went wrong in the design process, which I really enjoy as well. But I was doing the MMA thing for 6 months, so when I wasn't doing the training, I was doing lemur, and it was a nice transition period as well. And this is the thing you often see with professional athletes. The big issue in rugby, now you touched on it earlier on, is the mental health issue. And a lot of guys suffer a lot from that, because as a professional athlete, you're, the top 1% of your industry. And then overnight, you're a nobody. No disrespect, but you're not.
No, and to be very clear about my point, when I said it can be overdone, my point is that it is such a real issue that I just worry sometimes when I see sometimes people potentially trading off it. And the danger is, when people do that, they undermine the reality of how some people can be really suffering. And that's what I'm particularly concerned about.
I to be clear, I agree with you.
Yeah, no, I know you do, because I know we're on the same.
Hashtag fit fam. It's kind of like hashtag
Exactly.
mental fam. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
we're on the, and that's the thing, we're on the same page. But just for anyone else that may be watching, and they may be wondering where that context was coming from, that it is a very real thing. So with regards then to the prototyping stage, how long did that take?
So you're looking at really the conception. You're looking about 6 months. So it was perfect time in regards to the MMA I was doing, because it was kind of at the start when I started the MMA. The prototype was ready the week of my fight.
Oh wow, okay.
So it couldn't have worked out any better in that regard. So we got the initial prototype, and that really allowed us to start doing some proper beta testing, and going to other investors and said, listen, they have something they can touch and feel, and it's a lot easier from mind to schematics on a piece of paper to actually see, right, here's something tangible.
Absolutely.
But, and so we had that then, and then it allowed me to go out and get a bit more investment, and then through the jigs and the reels. It's, as you said, it text, it's not easy. You go through the route of, through people, you've been with Enterprise Ireland or that side of stuff, and you go down that route, and there's some brilliant people involved in it, and there's some brilliant people who've been really helpful, but the way the whole thing is set up and is not good for startups, especially in tech or in my field in particular. The way they no, I don't want to say tick boxes, but the way they have set rules you need to abide by, And they often ask the question, is like, how come the America is so much better, or they're so far ahead in technology, and why does everyone have to go to the States?
One word, Stripe.
Yeah, well, Stripe. Well,
you know the story behind that?
Go on, tell me.
A well-known government agency didn't really know what to do with these two young lads, so they went to America, and of course America knew how to look after them, and that's the reality. That's what it comes down to. As simple as that.
And that's it exactly. And they're playing not to lose instead of playing to win.
Yeah. So what do you think when if you were thinking about their All Ireland plan? I mean, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Now, But what do you think their end game was?
The end game is we want to be the best in the world.
Okay.
And that's the only game you can have if you want to be the best in the world. You don't
And what
say
kind of mindset did that require?
mindset. One is that work ethic, the belief in yourself. That's paramount to anything you do. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, and
But how do you think from an organization? Because I think it's really interesting. I've never had this conversation before. What do you think other areas of, because obviously, oh, it's all in vogue now. Oh, look at Ireland, they're great. But it didn't happen. It didn't
no,
happen by chance. You know,
no.
what can we learn from that? If we were to say, if we were to achieve similar business success, and I mean specifically homegrown indigenous technology companies, or it doesn't have to be technology, homegrown indigenous businesses that are going to continue to grow and scale internationally. Okay, we have a lot of success with this, but if we were to have a Ireland 2.0, what could we learn from the IRFU about setting up for best success?
Well, I suppose I was very lucky and I learned a lot from it as well. I was lucky in one respect and not in the other. I was in Leinster, in the Leinster Academy during that transition period. Like all the top dogs now, like John O'Saxon and stuff, like, you know, John was a year ahead of me in the academy, like Sean O'Brien. All those guys are my go. And I was in Leinster when Leinster were getting, or the sub academy or whatever, when Leinster were getting beatdowns every week. You know, they were whipping boys of the Celtic League as it was then.
Yeah.
And I was really in Leinster during the Michael Cheika era. And the perception, and perception is reality. This is another thing. What you are perceived to be is what you are, you know. And Leinster were perceived to be a team. Yeah, they've got great skills, a lot of talent in the backs in particular, but they've no pack and they're soft. That is another thing you never want to be, is soft. And if the world thinks you're soft, you start to begin to think you're soft, and you don't have confidence in yourself and your own ability, and you buckle under pressure and you lose all the time. And they brought in Michael Cheika because he was a hard-nosed, aggressive, bully Australian type mentality. To, you know, you often hear carrot or the stick, and Cheika was all about the stick, you know, and that's what they needed. And then they started winning Heineken Cups and became the best team in Europe. And then off the back of that, then, so you have that's where the hardness and the nearly beating the belief into them, you know. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it's a gradual thing. And then you had that thing where they were on a high, they were winning, and then you have the likes of Joe Schmidt, another excellent, best in the world at what he does. But this ties more into what you're saying in terms of how does the startup community in Ireland do. What Joe did, see, where I suffered under Cheika was that he didn't blood many new players. He was there to do a job. He had the senior squad. He was going to forge them into a winning team. I'm there to do a job, win them. He wasn't there to grow Irish rugby or 10 years down the line. He was there to do his job while he was there, and he did it very effectively and really, really well. But he left at the right time, I feel. He had done his thing. I don't think he could push it because the stick can only go so far as well, you know, before breaks. And, you know, Joe Schmidt came in. What Joe did, I think the year I left, you know, there was like 5 or 6 new caps or something ridiculously low. I think it was something like 40 new caps the next year because he blooded guys, and he had the senior. He knew he could rely on the senior, the guys who had won the Heineken Cups to train in. What better guys to coach in the next generation than the guys who've already done it? To give that mentality, that winning belief in yourself. It doesn't come easy. You have to fucking work hard at it, but this is how you do it. And throw you in the deep end. Sink or swim. And pressure. Like if you're in your it's better to do it in your late teens, early 20s to get exposed to that pressure. Playing among your heroes to grow And then you'll be a senior player by the time you're 22, 23.
It's been amazing to watch that though, because like I remember Gary Ringrose, like I used to play tag. Have you ever come across Clincher, Paul Clinch? Clincher organised a bit of tag on Monday nights down in Blackrock. His kids used to come along sometimes, and their mates, and one of them was Gary Ringrose. Then years later, I was doing a lot of running, and before I know it, I ended up with a senior cap for Belvo. But it was a very short-lived thing. But it exposed me to being able to understand what you're talking about, and it's been amazing to watch that journey. And Jack as well down at Belvo, and like fellas that you'd be, lovely lads that you'd be playing with, and then suddenly you'd see them, but there was very much a sense that they were being looked after, and there was very much a sense that, exactly to use your word, blooded, that they were being put in and they're given a few minutes here and a few minutes there. And that was my own personal experience, that like, because of my age, I was never going to go on. But there was this attitude of, that fella has put in the effort, let's give him an opportunity. And there's something that I can certainly say that I felt from that development. And it's something that I would argue is lacking in the business world. Whereas the RFU thing, it's only really been the last, 10, 15 years that we've really seen this going from floundering about the place to global domination. I think there's something in that.
There is, and there's things that, we're in a unique situation the way the setup is in Ireland as well. Like, I played in England, and England especially, they're the biggest union in the world,
Yeah.
We're such a small playing population, population full stop, but playing population. And everyone's like, how the hell are they doing it? And I said, well, there's one thing in particular within Irish rugby, and this ties into the business thing, and we've touched on it already. It is the genuine and love that you cannot buy. Passion. Lads, Gary Ringrose or whoever the case may be, myself, when I started in Leinster, you want to play for Leinster. That is your goal. That is your dream. Your passion is to play for Leinster. And you would literally do it for nothing. And that's really the difference between a job and, as you said, your calling or whatever phrase you want to use. And problem in England a lot of the time is it's a lot more like soccer, because the clubs aren't under the one umbrella. They're all separate. You can jump from one club to the next for big money very quickly and stuff like that. And I think in Ireland, it's a big decision. I don't want to put all players in the same bracket in England, but it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. Like, same in Munster. The boys who grow up in Munster want to play for Munster. They would literally die for the shirt. The same for Leinster. The same for Connacht and Ulster and stuff like that. And you cannot buy that. It's a hard thing to quantify. But the other thing that does come in that can be, and they've done it in Ireland, is that belief. And like in Leinster, it's not a case of, if we can win it, we are winning. That's it. There's no second place, Bobby.
Yeah.
But Tailgate Nice, you're first, you're last. You're not first, you're last, and that's the mentality, and that's the mentality you have to have in business as well, and in tech startups.
So going back to this investing piece and the getting going and the raising the money, how has been your experience with raising money?
The raising money can be frustrating, to be honest with you, because especially industry and like for the government one, and in this side of the world as well, is like the government one. And the thing is, when you're raising money, they put, and this going back to the rugby, funnily enough, and strength and conditioning. When I was in strength and conditioning in Leinster back in the day, gym session, one size fits all. So everyone would do the same weights, everyone would do the same, and that's not how it works, because everyone has a different body, everyone has a different nervous system.
Absolutely.
Some things work, and same with diet and all this carry on. Same goes for business. Every business is different. Every business needs different type of support, different type of funding, different type of advice, different type of whereas in the government it's one size fits all.
Okay, that's really interesting.
And especially at the start, and like, I was doing things with them, and you're up against some very good businesses, but like you're up against, let's say, like a biscuit factory. I couldn't be further away from what a fucking business factory is. And this is where the risk aversion comes in, because they look at my business and they go, right, okay, in their eyes, that's blue sky. You want to be the next Facebook? Yeah, good man. Whereas this guy here has this amount of biscuits are being made a month. This is what he's going to do in 6 months. This is what he's going to do in 12 months. It's tangible. You can feel it. And that's what I mean.
Yeah,
and
but if you go to California and you don't say you want to be the next big Facebook, they're going to be like, you got to adjust your attitude, bro.
Well, this is it. Not saying I want to be like the evil that is.
But that's also like the really massive point that with regards to the sport, that you have this idea going the way through. I want to be the best. I want to be with the best team. I want to achieve the best. And you must have seen that out in SBG as well, that if you don't have that attitude, that it's very difficult. Like the thing about McGregor, like I think if you think about the last person who spoke like him and the rhetoric and all the rest, I don't know to what extent there's a connection, but it was Muhammad Ali. I'm going to be the best in the world. And it's there's the talking and then there's the doing, but it's the combining the two and finding that balance, and that's something that as Irish people I think we can sometimes struggle at. But we need to define that. We need to say, we're going to be the best in the business.
Yeah, and definitely it's like you need to look at it as on a personal, because there is a thing of in Ireland, especially being a Catholic country, the worst sin is pride. And that is a big thing. Don't blow your trumpet, and there's a lot of benefit from that as well, being like a silent assassin or whatever, and let your actions speak loud enough. But especially in business, or it's same as in rugby, I probably I learned this a bit later. If I had known, would have done it sooner. But you are your product.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you need to market yourself as if you are a product and not as a person. And don't be shy or ashamed of it, because if you're selling shoes or hats, you'll put the foot in the accelerator and this is the best hat in the world. Or whatever. Do that for yourself as well. Don't look at it as a personal egotistical. It's not.
Back yourself. That's something that actually came through to me via Munster, because going back to Clincher's tag, like there's a lad who used to play down that direction, and he'd always say to me, you have the motor, back yourself. And the whole Belvo experience as well, like I feel incredibly privileged. Like it was only a very brief moment in time, but to have that opportunity where a lot of other lads who would have devoted years to the club never got that opportunity. But what I say was simply, I just kept working at it. I put in the effort and I was rewarded for that effort. And when you get that small little glimpse of a reward of when somebody else says, back yourself, you've got the legs, it's an incredible experience. It's an incredible feeling. When you have, it's confidence. And it's like confidence is attitude without cockiness, is a little kind of phrase I came up with a few years ago to try and describe this. But being able to figure that out, I think it's one of the critical success factors, is being able to find that balance.
It is, and how to express it, and it's self-esteem. That's, we're talking the big issue with the mental health thing.
Yeah, that's exactly.
A lot of that comes from self-esteem, low self-esteem, and I think that's a big part of it in the business side of stuff, on the raise, and that helps you. And and one success, they may only be little successes, but they all lead to another and another, and that ties into it. As I said, there's so many different aspects to success. There's no one answer to it. And in the raise, that is, as I said, that's a difficult thing on this side of the world, especially. I might be crossing the pond fairly soon. We're actually talking with people over in Silicon Valley in the trenches at the moment, which is going very, very well. But it is risk aversion is a huge thing. Anything B2, as you said it there 6 months ago, B2C, people are like,
unless you're biscuits.
Unless you're biscuits.
That's what, when you were saying that, like I was just thinking it is actually the ultimate irony. Oh no, we're not interested in business to consumer. Yeah, unless you're selling candles, in which case
you're great.
Here's the checkbook, fill it in.
There's that disconnect between the digital.
And again, there's nothing wrong with biscuits. There's nothing wrong with candles.
Loud Leo, who I'm working with, there's some, they're brilliant. Like, but there's other people through the great. That's the problem with that kind of system, is you have to do it in a certain way.
We talk about, look at Irish rugby, but really people need to really get under the hood of that and recognise that there are a lot of learnings that can be taken.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, without a doubt, and that's what has stood to me and massively. And what I'm doing is rugby. Yeah, it is my experience in rugby, the people I was around, my network that's still there, because rugby is still going to be a big part of Lemur moving forward in terms of content. You know, I don't know. Did you hear that text message came in? Actually, a rugby contact. We'll meet with him later on. There you go.
Very good.
Without a doubt, but in terms of the biggest issue I think I've had in terms of the raise is people understanding what it's about, because it's so new, and the risk aversion, and kind of like, where is this going? And this ties into, again, what I found in business, in sport. This ties into everything we've been talking. The people who really succeed, the best in the business, can see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
They can see 5 years from now, 10 years from now, not today. And they can't see past their hand in front of their face. And I think that ties into what we were talking. Some of the people making the decisions and investing and stuff don't look at bigger pictures. They're like, here now, quotas, etc. But that goes for like some of the best investors, people I've some brilliant investors. That's another thing in terms of the investment. I was advised from day one to do this, and notice myself from a team. Don't just get money, or a guy with money. Get a guy who has money, but who has something he can bring to the table in terms of experience. Smart money. And his network and what he can do and open doors and so on. And because that makes it easier to get money down the line. It's all adds to it. And what helps me as well, my pitch today is 1,000 times easier than it was this time last year. Not necessarily because of the product, but the market.
Yeah.
Because everything I'm saying is happening. I'm
it's incredible.
a Mystic Mac. I'm saying I'm going to be the double champ, and it fucking thing is happening. So it's kind of like, listen, lads, just give me the money and allow me to make it happen.
Yeah, like from a tangible point of view, the trust is broken. The trust is broken with certain individuals. The trust is certainly broken with a lot of agencies. The new agencies that were coming along, there's a lot of questions being raised. And then there's also a lot of regulations that are potentially going to shift, and that will seriously impact. So to be able to control the platform is something that somebody might have said, you're mad 2 years ago. Well, maybe 6 months ago, certainly 2 years ago. But today, you know what? We need new platforms. Absolutely. So there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, and you're going to be one of the early adopters of it. I can't wait to hear your social audio on Lemur.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and we're coming up over an hour actually, which is incredible. Right. Because I think normally my interviews would be a lot shorter, but I think because you've got such a range across the sport, I did not realize what attracted me to your product was what you're doing. But then as we were chatting, I think it's really interesting. I think it's worth having that conversation. I'm really grateful to you for sharing your time so that we can better understand. I think we all need to better understand how we can learn from the sporting successes of the likes of the IRFU and even just as individuals, like how we can learn to better manage ourselves and our strengths and our weaknesses in terms of business, sport, life, and how there are parallels and how we can learn from these experiences. So I think it's been a really interesting kind of open-ended conversation and lots of learnings.
Oh yeah, definitely, and thanks for reaching out. As I said, I'm sure we'll be meeting again fairly soon. You're only up the road. We'll
great.
Meet for a coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. Love a bit of Mornington.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'll bring you to Nan's in Laytown. They do a great
Savage.
coffee. Good shout out for Nan's there. But yeah, listen, it was great, and I look forward to the next chat.
Amazing. Shane Monaghan, Lemur, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks.